Fascist.
Spreading global fascism.
We are facing fascism.
Fascism is not on the way, it is here.
Why fascists fear teachers.
The fascists.
Fascism.
The fascist.
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 Fascism. Fascist dictator.
Fascism.
A fascist to his core.
Nazi.
I believe we're on the path that Nazi Germany went down under Hitler.
They are disgusting Nazi fascists, and we need to cull their throats and get rid of them all.
Fuck Nazi. Nazi scum off our streets.
MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement.
Threat to our democracy.
The threat to our democracy.
This existential threat to democracy and freedom.
It's a threat to democracy.
He's an existential threat to democracy.
The people being marked with this word are not being labelled with it because of them actually holding fascist beliefs or politically acting as fascists. Most people engaging in said labelling have no idea what the definition of a fascist even is. I've had many discussions with acquaintances and strangers who have used the word fascist to label something they politically disagree with. When I ask them what they think fascism is, they have no idea how to define it.
You create a company that's like close to being a fascist, and then
okay. How am I?
Sorry.
Let's go through this. How am I a fascist?
No. Dude,
Can you name one thing I believe that's fascist?
You believe that you are.
The word fascist is not being used to identify people who are actually fascists. The word is being used by the modern left wing for one simple reason: to mark people as political targets. It is not being used as a label of specific politics. It is being used to designate someone as a deplorable who is not allowed to have any input or effect on politics because they have gone against the left wing's dogma. When Franklin Roosevelt opened the doors of the United States to the Soviet communist subversives in the 1940s, many were given directives to conduct smear campaigns on political opponents by using names with existing bad connotations to them. To no surprise, fascist and Nazi were the two top main labels suggested. This may surprise you, but a vast amount of Republican presidential candidates were also smeared as Nazis or fascists many times leading up to their election. This practice hasn't changed, but with the mental decay of the West, the consequences of these slanderous labels have gotten worse. It doesn't matter if the labelled person's beliefs are anywhere near fascist beliefs. What matters is that if the gullible masses have been told over and over again that someone is one, then they will begin to believe that the accused is a fascist, no matter the lack of evidence. It only takes one mentally unstable young man who has been indoctrinated into this dogma to take these labels as a call to action. Once he has acted alone, the ones who stoked the political fire can wash their hands clean and act like they did nothing wrong. Many of these people even then deny ever saying those words, yet the internet is forever and the replies on Twitter are filled with proof of their slander. They did not directly call for the attack. They did not directly say that Charlie needed to be taken out. They may have labelled him as an enemy to their political dogma and claimed that his speech caused harm, painting his debates as dangerous and violent to justify the eventual leftist reprisal as an act of self-defense. But to spread such an idea vaguely is not legally punishable. Many left-wingers online are gleefully claiming that Charlie Kirk deserved to be assassinated because he was, in their words, a fascist. These people were not fringe communist revolutionary hippies like David Graeber. Many were teachers. Many were nurses. Many were government employees. Many were university staff and faculty. An unsurprising amount were university students with the usual visual hallmarks of mental illness. Many were women who seemed to be blissfully unaware that rising political violence never ends well for vulnerable people like themselves. This word is being taught to kids, professed to young adults, repeated to news slot watchers, and engraved into the minds of leftist Twitch viewers. What fascism actually is a reactionary extreme political ideology that was born in the early 1900s in Italy. It was a radical response to the spreading communist and socialist political revolutions that were terrorizing Europe at the time. It uses authoritarian control over the media, it centrally plans the nation's economy, it clamps down on the free market, it places individual freedoms underneath the benefit of the nation, it controls dissidents through state-sanctioned violence, it actively works against the idea of debating over political ideas, it removes faith from its people so that the state can stay as the top dog. I won't go too much further into detail in the definition than I need to, but I assure you, if you asked almost anyone who uses this label religiously, they would not even be able to have a surface level idea of the political ideology that fascism is. Virtually all fascist beliefs are nowhere near any of Charlie Kirk's beliefs. Charlie Kirk was a moderate Republican Christian. He was not a fascist, nor was he anywhere ideologically close to a fascist. He actively campaigned for free speech. He said multiple times that he wants to debate all kinds of people because lack of political dialogue between ideologies eventually leads to violence.
Because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
He was permissive of unchristian lifestyles in his country because he supported an adult's ability to live their private life the way they wished to, as long as it broke no laws. He was not for the segregation or discrimination of different races in America. He wanted to identify and solve problems like the extensive criminality that black Americans face, seeing that it claims so many of their lives a year. He was not for the complete control of state media, of the economy, of the country's money. It really paints a picture of how low IQ some of these political analysts that are dragged into news stations like CNN are, because they just willy-nilly apply the label of something like fascist to someone like Charlie, who wants to reduce the state size and influence and wants more free speech in the country. I want to reiterate that the term was not being used to label as politics. It was being used to classify him as an enemy. It was being used to classify him as a target. It was being used to make him seem less than human, to validate any actions taken towards him. The purpose of dehumanizing him is that if he is knocked off, there will be little remorse from the faithful masses. He was someone who stood in the way of their politics and offended their dogmatic beliefs.
What does that mean?
I hope you get shot in the Kirk. I hope you get shot. Yeah.
You hope I get shot?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
why?
Because you're a Nazi. You're a fascist. Yeah.
Just like religious extremism, when an outspoken figure crosses one's dogma, there can only be one true action that is correct to take against them. All that is required is to drum up the believers until one does what is needed for the good of the faith. There is a trend across university campuses that right-wing speakers have been subject to radical leftist violence simply just for having conflicting views with them. The protesters are drummed up via a buzzword of which they don't even know the definition of, to ensure that they see the political opponents as less than human. This validates any action taken towards them. They will use it to validate any action taken towards you, no matter how small the infraction against their faith is. These left-wingers rejoice at the news of Charlie Kirk's assassination due to their belief that, seeing he was a moderate right-winger, he deserved to be assassinated. If you hold any views similar to him, they will wish the same level of violence to be committed to you. If you express sorrow at the killing of a politically influential figure, they will be unable to understand your grief because, to them, he was not worthy of living due to the beliefs he openly held. If you grieve for him at a vigil, they will protest said vigil, screaming over loudspeakers and destroying effigies left in his honour. Think about how many people you know that have moderate politics similar to him, let alone the many you may know that have right-wing politics stronger than him. I personally believe that not a mentally sound person would be comfortable seeing all of these people as enemies, but they are so comfortable seeing them as enemies, they publicly celebrated his death with their real faces and names, believing that they would face no retaliation. Many of them have called for more blood to be shed. Their proposed targets include Elon Musk, a globalist old-school liberal, Trump, an old-school Democrat but also literally Hitler, J.K. Rowling, a radical globalist feminist, Joe Rogan, a Bernie bro hippie, Andy Ngo, a gay Asian man who documented Antifa's militant overtaking of Portland, Oregon. It doesn't matter that none of these people are anywhere close to being fascist. They have, in some way, sinned against the dogmatic orthodoxy of the Church of Leftism and of Universalist liberalism. For that sin, they are marked. The question begs, why are leftists doing this? The first answer is that they've spent the vast majority of their life being taught how to think this way. Teachers, professors, newscasters, internet personalities, and education managers, to name a few, are all speakers of this church and continue to indoctrinate the youth. Many of them do not have children. Even if they do have children, they become a prop used to show their loyalty to the church. The most ardent supporters of the church do not reproduce via their own blood, like how many traditionalist movements do. They instead reproduce through indoctrination. The targets of their indoctrination are often the young and impressionable school-age kids of whom that they can interact with, away from the prying eyes of their real family. I also believe that debating to defend one's position, rather than just screaming down those who dissent, has become more unfamiliar for much of the modern left's faithful. They've become used to bubbles of opinion that last from school all the way to their working life, where their feelings cannot be offended and their beliefs cannot be contradicted. To them, hearing opinions from someone who does not believe in the ingrained truths of modern liberalism is equivalent to having an act of violence done upon them. The young leftists have had all dissidents removed from internet spaces over the past decade. No political debate nor right-wing community has been allowed on Reddit in years. No right-wing opinion outside of the boomer-tier conservatism survived the Facebook bans. Right-wing discords are constantly banned while servers containing leftist child grooming in the name of gender-affirming spaces infest their site. Only Twitter has been revived as a modern mainstream site with lax moderation, and it drives information merchants insane that they cannot control its moderation too. The older leftists have been kept in check by CNN and their ilk, ensuring that they have the same message drilled into their head day after day. It is almost sad to see how many older Americans are filling out the "Trump is a fascist" protests. But once you have seen the media that they consume, it is easy to picture why they wholeheartedly believe the reasons that put them there. Lastly, I believe that the left are finding it harder and harder to achieve political gains through legitimate means. The West, after following the liberal paradigm of the universal human for decades, is now facing its consequences. Imported lawlessness, domestic lawlessness, racial tensions, religious tensions, stagnating birth rates, castration of the youth and of the mentally unsound, decreasing living standards, increased sexual crimes against women and girls. I won't go on, but you get my point. It turns out that our countries do not have magic soil, and that everyone and anyone who places their foot into it does not immediately become a 90s liberal. While most leftists are in denial about it, there are stark differences between peoples which cannot be simply neutralised and ground down into the liberalist multiculturalist blob like many of us were. Some peoples are simply too unalike. History, culture, genealogy, religions, and social hierarchies make some of us simply incompatible with each other. All one has to do is look at the history of countries like Yugoslavia and Lebanon to see what the endpoint of this rampant multiculturalism can be. My suggestion, if you ever call one of these words, don't waste your time trying to prove to your accuser that you are not of that label. They are not trying to accurately portray you or your beliefs. They are marking you out as an enemy. These people cannot be reasoned with, and their reaction to Charlie's assassination cements that as fact. Continue building your political views unburdened from the act of having to prove to mentally ill traitors that you are not a heretic in their church. Challenge them on their beliefs with viewpoints that they simply cannot conceive of, and watch them squirm at your heresy. Join groups of people that want to openly discuss politics with an open mind. Always chimp out and pressure politicians. Pressure from a voter base to earn votes is one thing that they hate more than anything, but they will bend to it in time.